Let's talk more about Alex Murdaugh. He also made the 911 call, and the jury got to hear that today.
They did. In fact, they heard, so when he placed the 911 call, they first heard from the 911 dispatcher in Hampton County. His call went to Hampton County. Again, this Moselle property on the border of Hampton and Colleton County, but on the side of Colleton County. That's why we're here. But this call went to Hampton. So what we've heard when it was released in 2021 was the Hampton County portion of the 911 call before it was transferred over to Colleton County. So we heard an extended version today with a second witness on the stand that offered a lot more details about what Alex Murdaugh was saying to the 911 dispatcher there while he waited for police. And we learned that he actually is on the phone with 911. He drives back to his home. He's telling them he's going to go get a shotgun. They're asking him questions about, did he hear any noises? And he said, no, I wasn't there. But he does describe what he did see. Let's watch.
Ma'am, I don't know, but he's got blood everywhere. His brain.
He has the frantic voice, of course, and it was kind of at times inaudible or some kind of garbled in the courtroom because the audio would stop and pick back up, and they explained that a little bit. But some other key points, he says that he hadn't seen his wife and son for around 2 hours before calling 911, that nothing looked out of place. He said that, again, his son Paul had been threatened for months, and that he knew that those threats had been reported, that Paul had reported those threats, and that his son Paul knew who was threatening him on this call. But he was also told to turn on his hazard lights, to prepare for the police to arrive and get there. The operator kept saying, don't touch anything, don't move around, but he said that he had already approached the bodies and checked for a pulse, which also came up later in testimony about how reasonable that would have been given the state of Paul and Maggie's bodies. Benny.
Chanley Painter, stand by. We've got more questions for you, but right now, based on everything that she's shown us, let's bring in Los Angeles, California, body language expert, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert, witness, columnist of Inside the Criminal Mind, Dr. Carol Lieberman with us. Dr. Lieberman, great to see you tonight, and I'm fascinated by what he's saying and how he's saying it, but I want to know what you're hearing from Alex Murdaugh, both in the body cam audio that we heard and the 911 call. What are you hearing in his voice? What is significant in how he's saying it and what he's saying to you?
Yes, well, as far as the 911 call, I don't think it sounds real. I don't think it sounds authentic. But as far as, how he looks in the courtroom when all of this testimony was being given, it's interesting. The prosecution was making a deal out of the fact that he wasn't at the crime scene. He wasn't crying. There were no tears, no real tears. And in the courtroom, he, wipes away tears. There are real tears. His face is red. So I think that he really was crying, but it wasn't for his son and his wife. I think it was for himself. He was feeling sorry for himself that is in this mess, and that there's, bringing on all this evidence.
What's your take on his lead, though, right? In journalism, there's always like the lead, right? What you start with is the most important. And prosecutors are making a big deal about the fact that he's leading with the boat crash, like right out of the box. The responders coming to the scene, his wife and his son on the ground, and he's talking about the boat crash being the motive. That's what this is all related to.
Yes. Even though I think he was he had been taking drugs for quite some time, so that was impairing his brain. But at the same time, I think he had planned out so cleverly so much of what was there. Starting with having the story about the boat crash and blaming it on that. And, that is sort of a plausible thing. You would think that, yes, if there's proof that he has been getting hit or, and getting threats and so on, then yes, that would seem like a plausible thing. But the fact that he brings it up right at the beginning, instead of being really honestly upset about his wife and his son, is something that he had planned before he allegedly did all of this to begin with. He was going to blame it on the boat accident.
It does, and I know that's where prosecutors are going with what they're saying. Anything else that you noticed from his tone, the way he was reacting at the scene?
Well, yes, he was he had a high-pitched voice. It was just bad acting. It's like what he thought you're supposed to be like when you see your wife and your son dead, and not just dead, but such an incredibly violent scene, gruesome scene, their brains splattered all over. And so I think he was, they thought to himself, well, how would a person act? How are they supposed to act, a husband and a father, if they saw this kind of thing? Also, in terms of body language in the court, he's at times he's rocking back and forth, and that's a self-soothing action. And also he's like chewing sometimes, and I don't know if that's because he has gum in his mouth or he's chewing the sides of his mouth, but it's anxiety.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, great insight tonight. Thank you so much for helping us out.
Thank you.